Kaiju fans, GojiFan93 here, and welcome to another Kaiju discussion video. This is the first Kaiju discussion video for 2015, yeah! So, in this video I will be discussing the Showa series of Godzilla. And also I will announce that the next couple Kaiju discussion videos will be dedicated to the series. So next will be the Heisei series, and after that will be the Millennium series, and then for the first time in Kaiju discussion series whatever, I will be talking about Gamera and the Showa, Heisei, and Millennium series of him. And I might also talk about Mothra, but there's not really a lot to talk about with Mothra because she only doesn't have a lot of films, but who knows, we'll see with that. But for the next couple Kaiju discussions, it will be dedicated to the series of Godzilla and Gamera. So first we'll do Godzilla, obviously starting with the Showa series. And yeah, so these are my thoughts, and I know I have a couple people that might be watching this video that are probably really giving me the stink eye, because I made a couple people a little bit ticked off of my top 10 female actresses in Godzilla, because I didn't mention a couple Showa female actresses in it, but yeah, but anyways, I know that they're probably watching. If you guys are, just hear me out, alright? So, the Showa series. 1954 to 1975. Started with the classic Godzilla or Gojira, and that's basically what started it all. Now, a little bit of backstory on my history with the Showa series. When I was little, the first thing my dad showed me, which was Godzilla 1984, but I believe, I kind of get confused if it really was 1984 or if my dad showed me the original Godzilla first. But I'm really thinking it was 1984, but I know right after that he showed me the original film. And I don't remember much of when I first saw it, obviously, because I was like 2 years old, so I don't really remember a lot of the film. But I do remember growing up with the Showa series. I watched a lot of the films. The majority of the films that I would see when I was little were the 70s, kind of the late 60s and 70s films. So probably from Godzilla's Revenge to Terror and Mechagodzilla. Those are the films that I saw the most as a kid when it came to the Showa series. Now, granted, I grew up or I was born in the Heisei series, 1993, so obviously Mechagodzilla 2 was out, and we had Space Godzilla and Destroya that came after that. But I saw a couple Heisei films as well when I was little. I saw those a lot, and I saw Biollante, and it was only the Biollante movie that I didn't see the most, because that film was really hard to find back in the 90s. But the other films I saw a lot, and the Millennium series, that was the series that I kind of obviously grew up with, because that was 1999 to 2004. But because I was too little, I didn't really understand the years. I didn't really keep track of them, and I didn't know that Final Wars was the last movie. But anyways, getting back to the Showa series, so I just wanted to tell you guys my experience with the Godzilla films growing up, and hopefully you guys will understand where I'm coming from. Now, as a Godzilla fan, the Showa series is a very important part in the whole franchise. It's the classics. It's the movies that everyone grew up with, but there are a couple things about the Showa series that bug me looking at the series objectively without any Godzilla beer goggles or any Godzilla nostalgia going on here. But so I'll explain the bad things first, just so we can get that out of the way, and then I'll talk about the things that I love about the Showa series. So the bad things about the Showa series, there's not a lot, okay? Don't get me wrong. They are classic films, okay? But to me, okay, let me say this. What Godzilla is to me is 1954. That's Godzilla, okay? To me, that is what this character is. He's not a hero. He's not coming fighting aliens, from space, anything like that. He is a metaphor. He's here to put a mirror up to humanity and say, look at what you guys have created. That's Godzilla to me, when he's going around destroying stuff, okay? That is my true definition of what Godzilla is. So whenever I say, you know, what Godzilla is to me, 1954, 1984, that's what he is, okay? So you guys can kind of see that the Showa series after 1954 kind of, you know, went off focus and just kind of made Godzilla do a lot of different things. Now, Godzilla's Raids Again, we'll move on to the next film. Godzilla's Raids Again, Godzilla was still not a good guy. You know, he fought Anguirus, obviously, but Raids Again, you know, as a film, it just didn't have the impact like the first one did, and I feel like it was just kind of shot out because of the success of the first one. It's kind of like those sequels that just get put out there because they think they'll make money from it. I know that some people really do like Raids Again, but to me, it's not one of those strong films. Usually in my memory, it gets forgotten easily. You know, just because Godzilla's design isn't really that interesting. Also, if you guys look right there, you guys can't, he's probably out of frame, but if you look at there, that's the 1955 X Plus Diamond reissue that I have. You know, I bought him because it's a, you know, it's a cool figure to have, and also the Anguirus, I have him with him, but, grammar, but, you know, the film itself I just didn't really care for. I don't really remember any of the characters. I remember the pilot guy who was kind of funny, but not really, you know, but whatever. But then we move on to King Kong vs. Godzilla, which as a kid, I watched this movie a lot, okay? I even have the X Plus figure right here of the 62 Godzilla, and I can't get enough of this Godzilla. This Godzilla was really awesome, because the reason why I love that Godzilla was because he was just as badass as the 1954 Godzilla. I mean, just seeing him come out of the iceberg at the beginning of the film, it was just, that is awesome, okay? And just the whole movie itself, I loved King Kong vs. Godzilla. To me, it's one of the best Godzilla movies. And, you know, I can keep on going back to that film and watch it again and again and again. And some of the actors I do really like in that film. You know, when I do my top male characters in Godzilla, I think I'm not going to say who it is, but one of the characters from this movie I think will be on that list. But, you know, and then we move on to Mothra vs. Godzilla, which obviously a lot of fans, you know, everyone says that this one is the, like, most classic, besides the first film of the Showa series. In my eyes, I think it's because I'm just not into Mothra that much, or at least I'm just not into the idea that Godzilla got beaten by two turds. That just really bugs me. But I will say that the 1964 Godzilla, the design, the suit, just the way he was really awesome. He was evil, he was badass, he was powerful. I mean, just the scene where he's coming out of the dirt, and, you know, where his first appearance in that film, I mean, it was just, oh, chills. But when he fights Mothra and the two turds show up, I don't know. When that happens, it just kind of bugs me. So, to me, it's not the super best Showa film, but, you know, I see why people take it as one. And also the music. I mean, the music is obviously, you know, epic, and it's one of Akira Ifukube's greatest works. And then we move on to, I believe, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Now this one was this is obviously a big one. This is a new Toho monster. Obviously, you know, we had Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan. And those were already established Toho monsters. We get Ghidorah, which is a new creation from Toho. And obviously this film is good. I mean, it's freaking Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. What else do you want? It's awesome. You have three monsters fighting one guy. I mean, like, and hopefully this movie might be remade in the next Godzilla American movies. But yeah, this one was really awesome. I don't really have any complaints with Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. I find it really awesome. I find it entertaining. It's really good film. Definitely something to show your friends if they're trying to get into Godzilla. It has some cheesy moments, obviously, and this is kind of when the Showa series starts to get a little bit more kid-friendly. Obviously, when Godzilla's like arguing with Rodan and Mothra's trying to stop their fighting, which I think that part was really funny, though. Obviously, you know, I mean, Godzilla's what happens? Like, I remember Mothra like shoots her web at Godzilla, and then he just stops, and then Rodan starts laughing, and then she shoots it at Rodan, and then Godzilla starts laughing. Like, that was pretty funny. But once again, guys, remember, to me, that's not really Godzilla. You know, that's not my true definition of what Godzilla is. So this is why the film started to kind of, you know, when I'm looking at this objectively. Then Invasion of the Astro Monster was the next one, which, you know, that one really didn't do it for me. I didn't really care too much about that film as much. The Exilians, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. I know I'm going to get a ton of flack for this, especially for the particular people that I know are watching. The Exilians, I don't really like. They're, you know, I mean, the last time I watched the film, every time they were on screen, I was just like, please go away. Your monotone voice, you're boring. The designs are just, I know it's the 60s, but I mean, God, it's so cheesy. It's so like, oh, just come on. You can't take it seriously. You know, so Invasion of the Astro Monster wasn't really my favorite one, especially because now it was just down to Godzilla and Rodan versus King Ghidorah, kind of the same battle. It really didn't change anything. And then, you know, then we have the rest of the films. You know, we get into, let's see, that was 64, so we got 65, 66. You know, Godzilla vs. Sea Monster. This film I have a big problem with. Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster is one of my least favorite Godzilla films. I cannot stress that enough. The last time I watched the film, I was alright with the human parts, especially because the actor who played as Dr. Serizawa returns, and he's actually like playing as the bad guy, which I really liked his character, and he might pop up on a top 10 list sometime in the future. But the film itself, though, I don't like it. It's boring. It takes forever for Godzilla to show up. Some of the characters I don't really care about. A lot of the characters I don't even remember, and well, okay, another thing is that Godzilla has, like, for 5 seconds in the film, all of a sudden gets, like, the hots for a girl, one of the slave girls, and, like, that just comes out of nowhere, you know, and this is after, I think he fights the oh my god, whatever that weird bird is, that whole battle scene, which was just completely random, but, you know, and then he just, like, looks at her, and he's, like, and this is because this film was supposed to have King Kong, but then they replaced him with Godzilla to make more money. And this is the thing that I don't like about Toho. They do this all the time. They make these stupid decisions based off of money and instead of what actually would have been a really good film. Because I feel like if this had King Kong in it, it would have been a lot better. So anyways, that whole thing was just, Godzilla felt really out of place in that whole film. And then obviously Son of Godzilla, I mean, sorry, I know there's a lot of people that like Son of Godzilla, but I'm one of those fans who I don't like it because of Minya. I cannot stand Minya. He's an abomination on the Godzilla franchise. I'm sorry, I cannot stand that creature. And Godzilla's design, I don't like Godzilla's design. His face is all crunched up, and this is when Godzilla really gets just dumb for me. I mean, it's like, it's cool to see Godzilla as a father. I'm fine with that, but when it's like this, I mean, it's totally for kids, and that's just where I don't connect with it, because once again, I need to reiterate this, that's not Godzilla to me. It's not. It's kid-friendly, big anime eye kind of thing. It's, you know, that's not truly what Godzilla is. Now, I can obviously appreciate the film for what it is, and, you know, I know that there are a lot of fans who do love it, and that's fine. Now, one thing that I do want to mention, when it comes to the music, every Showa film, I actually do like the music. Even Godzilla's Revenge, which is my all-time hated Godzilla movie, but the music of Godzilla's Revenge, I do like. And in fact, the Showa series, it has basically the best music in the franchise. I mean, the Heisei movies had really good music, but a lot of it was remasters of the Showa tunes. And the Millennium series had really good tunes as well, but the Showa, it's so classic, it's so nostalgic, but not even from a nostalgia viewpoint, it's good music. Like, I could literally put in the CDs in my car and just listen to it, and I'll be fine with it. I'll even listen to Godzilla's Revenge, and I'll jam out to it. So, you know, the music of it is fine. I love the music of the Showa series, probably the finest in the franchise. I mean, you know, Akira Ifukube was just in his prime, but then also, you know, there were the other composers I don't remember the names of, but, you know, from Godzilla's Revenge, you know, they had a different composer and whatever. So yeah, but, you know, then Destroy All Monsters comes along, and this is like the biggest, you know, oh, big Toho, every Toho monster's coming together and doing a big fight. Once again, this movie didn't really do it for me. I know a lot of old school fans love this film. They regard it as the high, but to me, I don't really regard it as the highest Godzilla film because the monster scene. Well, okay, first off, Godzilla in this one is a lot better than what he was before. Obviously, this Godzilla, he's kind of angry. He's destroying stuff. but then he kind of goes into like the hero mode where he takes out King Ghidorah with all the other monsters. But the movie was just kind of slow paced for me, and it just wasn't. I don't know. I guess I'm just too young, maybe. I don't know. But you know, I've seen the movie a lot, and I just can't. I keep on forgetting what happens in the film because it's so slow paced. Like, it's just get to the action or something. I want to see monsters, you know? So, whatever. You know, then we have the 70s movies, and these were the movies that I kind of relish in, though, because I have this weird obsession with Hedorah. I don't know why. When I watch Godzilla vs. Hedorah, yeah, the film is really flawed when you look at it objectively. It's not really a good film. But I don't know why. I just love Hedorah. I cannot get enough of that monster. I really don't know why. You know, and then, you know, obviously Godzilla vs. Gigan, which is another classic, but once again, it's slow-paced. It's not, the characters aren't really that interesting, but when it gets to the fight, and it's a long fight too. I mean, like when the 70s films were there, they had long fights. It was really interesting. But you know, then Godzilla vs. Gigan. Then we had Megalon, which, you know, I love Megalon, but the film that he was in, oh, it just. And the thing with Jet Jaguar is, it's pretty funny with Jet Jaguar. A lot of people, you know, he's like an underrated kaiju, or, you know, robot kaiju, whatever, in the Godzilla series, or just the kaiju genre in general. But the thing is the movies didn't make him cool. Do you know what made him cool? Do you know what made Jet Jaguar a badass? Godzilla Saved the Earth on the Xbox and PS2. Those games made Jet Jaguar a badass. In the movies, he's not. He's slow, he's boring, like he's boring to watch, you know, and he's not really that interesting. His theme song I'm alright with. I know a lot of people kind of get annoyed with his theme song. I'm fine with the theme song. But what made Jet Jaguar a badass was the video games. I'm sorry, but that's what I see, at least, because after those games came out, Jet Jaguar, like, was awesome. Like, every time I fought Jet Jaguar and Saved the Earth, I loved it. And every time I played as him in those games, I loved it. So, you know, and that was like the lowest period where Godzilla was in the franchise. And then I feel like after that they went, okay, we got to get Godzilla kind of back up to sort of a serious tone. Still some cheesy whatevers, but then it gets to Mechagodzilla, and this was one of the finest Showa films. In my eyes, I think, in my opinion, this was one of the best Showa films ever. I love this movie. I cannot get enough of it. Mechagodzilla's a badass. Godzilla's a badass, and there's a lot of blood. It's a bloody film. I mean, Godzilla bleeds from the neck, but not only that, the apes or the spacemen or whatever, there was a time when the guy gets shot in the neck and like black blood is just spewing out onto the screen, and you're just like, oh my god, this is for kids, and I loved it. And then Terror of Mechagodzilla. This was actually I recently fell in love with this movie, actually, because before I didn't really like it, but I was watching the American version. I recently bought the DVD that had the Japanese version on it, and I watched that. And this just further concludes my evidence that any Godzilla movie is better in the Japanese version. That's just me, you know, whether that's elitist or not, whatever. I just feel every movie's better in the Japanese version. Because Terror of Mechagodzilla, it was for here with me, but then after watching the Japanese version, it just I loved it after that. How mature the film was, actually, the themes, the characters, the motives, the music in it, I mean, everything was just so much better in the original release. And also, not to mention, it's it's one of the Godzilla films that you get to see some boobs. But I'm just throwing that out. This is just one of those Godzilla films where you actually see boobs, because in the English version they cut it out, which is bull. But anyways, and also the fact that, you know, the Katsura, the character who is kind of not really mind controlled, she's like a cyborg a little bit. She controls Mechagodzilla. She commits suicide at the end. Spoiler alert for a super old movie. But at the end, she literally commits suicide, and in the English version, they don't do that. Like, it's like the guy shot her in the stomach and then she dies from that. But in the Japanese version, she actually sacrifices herself to kill herself so that Mechagodzilla blows up. And that right there is maturity in a film, and I love it. That theming and symbolism and all that stuff, I love it. So that was really good. Now, Titanosaurus, also, as some of you guys know, not my favorite monster, but you know what, he's alright. I like to see him on screen. He's a cool monster. I want to see him in more stuff, obviously. You know, I kind of wished he was in the new Godzilla game that came out recently, but, you know, I mean, he's not my all-time favorite, but Titanosaurus, he's, you know, if he's in something, I'll watch. You know, it's not that bad. So anyway, so that was like, you know, I'm trying to talk about all the Showa films here. So the bottom line is, with the Showa series and me, is that I respect the Showa series. I respect it 100% for what it is, for what it did for the franchise, but then I also hate it for what it did for the franchise in the same kind of way, because the Showa series made Godzilla silly. It made Godzilla, if you were a fan, you know, at least when I was growing up, you were made fun of, you were mocked. You're like, oh, you like guys in cheesy rubber suits, you're gay, and all this stuff. Like, all these insults would come along all the time, being a Godzilla fan, at least, you know, if you were my age in the 90s and whatever. In the 70s, and probably early 80s, it wasn't as bad, but definitely when I was a kid, it was terrible. I could not talk about Godzilla. I would get made fun of. I'd get bullied for it. It'd be terrible. So I had to basically hide a big chunk of myself because there was no one else. Not even my friends are Godzilla fans. So it's, you know, sometimes I feel really alone with it, but then, you know, obviously I do YouTube now, and it's a lot easier to communicate with other Godzilla fans. But before, it was really hard. I couldn't talk about him. I couldn't do anything. And I blame the Showa series for that, because they made Godzilla this cheesy hero. They made him wave at the camera every time the movies ended in the 70s, and so that's the thing that really, that's why I can't regard the Showa series as the highest grade Godzilla movies, because it made Godzilla a laughingstock in the public's eye, in the mainstream. But when you look at it objectively, a lot of these films are cheaply made. They're not that good effects. They're not, you know, you gotta listen to me on this, okay? Objectively, I'm looking at this objectively as these films are. Now, obviously, you put the Godzilla beer goggles, you know, put on your nostalgia mindset or whatever. Yeah, all these films are cool to us Godzilla fans, but when I look at it, the Showa series just really brought it down a little bit. Now that I've talked about the bad things about the Showa series, and I know I'm going to get so much hate for it, I know I'm going to be like, you're not a Godzilla fan or blah blah blah, but just let's hear me out. The good things about the Showa series is that it's fun, it's cheesy fun. I love watching these films. They're, you know, besides some of the hiccups with some of the films, but overall I can enjoy every one of these films, except for maybe Godzilla's Revenge. Sometimes I just really can't stand that movie. But the thing that I like the most about those films is the music and the crazy storylines that go into them. But the thing that I feel was the best that came out of the Showa series was the monsters, the enemy kaiju that Godzilla fought. I mean, Hedorah, Megalon, Jet Jaguar, King Caesar, Mechagodzilla, I mean, King Ghidorah. You had all these characters, these colorful characters that really have, I mean, they are the classic monsters. And I mean, you just cannot, the Showa series had the best when it came to originality with monsters, with the designs and whatnot, and it just, like, they really shined with the different monsters and all that. I mean, I can't, I love it. I just love the monsters that were in this film, so, or that were in the Showa series. So, and I'm really sad that a lot of them didn't reappear in the other series except for Final Wars, but we'll get to that movie when we talk about the Millennium series. You know, the Showa series as a whole, I do love it. I respect it for what it is, but all in all, I kind of dislike it because of what it did to the Godzilla franchise, making Godzilla this cheesy hero and goofy and all that, and it kind of, you know, and that's not Godzilla to me. And you know, here we're gonna bring it all back. Godzilla to me is 1954, 1984, or GMK. I love the dark Godzilla. I love the serious tone Godzilla movies, okay? And that's why when I get to the Heisei series, I'll talk about, you know, why that's my favorite series overall. So, anyways, to those of you, some significant people who are watching, I hope you guys see my stance on the Showa series, and I hope I didn't hurt you guys too much, but to a lot of the Showa fans here. But don't get me wrong, guys, the Showa series is great. We all grew up with it. We all have fond memories of the films. You know, I'm just talking about it in a very objective way and trying to really understand, like, you know, because I'm not gonna praise it 100%. because it doesn't. And even the Heisei series and Millennium I'm not going to praise 100%. There are also some cons to those series as well, and I will get to those when I get to the next Kaiju discussion, whenever that happens. So, but that's pretty much it. So this video has gone on long enough, I feel. It's a good Kaiju discussion, I feel, so please put in the comments below what you guys think of the Showa series, and I would love to see the responses. And also, I can't wait to see the backlash of all the Showa fans having pitchforks and they're coming at my door and wanting to hang me for all of my bad talking the Showa series. So, but that's really it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay big, G fans.